Welcome, everyone, to the live reaction show here from the App Because We Win team. It's me, Steve Wyss, and I'm with the boss, Nigel Seeley. Have you recovered, Nigel, from the Christmas party yet?
Recovered? Are
Well,
you serious? I was the most soberest person at the party. You were Steve Wyss before you turned up. You and Jack Wright were completely Steve Wyss, and before you even arrived at the venue. Anyway, no, I'm absolutely fine, mate. I was more worried about you getting home back, all that journey back home. It was quite an interesting betting market because the betting market on the last man standing, the betting market on the first person to go never went to the way that the Bet Rivers bookmakers had it. The last man standing was me, and I'm glad to say I wasn't the last man standing. You were one of the last men standing. You and Dan Robert. Dan Robert was always my favourite anyway, but he were the last man standing. And the first man to go was Jack Wright.
I know.
Disappointed.
That was
didn't take his jacket off, did he? He didn't take his jacket off all night. So he must have knew he was making an early exit. That's why he left the jacket on.
Me and Sean Calvert, I think, were the last two standing.
That is a reverse forecast that nobody would have predicted.
I actually did get caught out because Victoria Station was closed. So I ended up at one point. I was walking down Oxford Street for about 10 minutes, and managed to then get on the Central line. But it was a good evening. There was plenty of great content there on the Instagram account, on the socials, and Dan Roebuck, king of the hockey. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, he was very lucky with his pairings. Anybody who's never been there, it's a good little venue. You get paired with people. Roebuck got paired with everybody, wasn't he? So he just absolutely got very lucky with the draw. I see that treat straight away. Ryan Johnson there with the unders, mate. Straight away, they're giving it to me straight away. More than happy to call about it. And I think that is forget about a Christmas party. At the end of the day, the Christmas party was on Friday. I wouldn't have been able to pay for it if it was on Saturday. So, you've got to mention these unders because these unders are my kind of thing. It's the thing that I've been known for. So I'm going to stand here and take any questions that anyone wants to talk about the unders and give some justification, try to give some explanation of why we're in this position. But, happy to help on any questions you want to talk about on that. No problem at all.
We've got Everton Man United on live now. We're going to talk about that maybe at half time. You're on the unders here. Goal of the season has probably been scored in this game.
Some would say if you go to premiersportsplace.com, which is my website, is that there's a bald-headed eagle doing a very similar overhead kick. The trouble is when I'd done that overhead kick, I couldn't walk for 6 months after that. So and I was bruised all over my leg. But a great goal. What a great goal it was. Fantastic.
It was an amazing goal. You're never dead though. I cashed an under yesterday in France, and Strasbourg scored after 3 minutes, so you can still win, and it is still only 1-0 to Manchester United. So we'll talk about that.
I remember I looked at the Twitter last night, and someone was giving you some stick about an under game that you gave a lean for, and it was 1-1 at the time after I think 35 minutes.
It was an official pick, not even a lean. It was
the official pick, and you were getting criticism for it, and I always say, well, no. My response to that always is that the match is over 90 minutes, and when people judge you and after 37 minutes of the game 1-1, as the rules change, is it over? But the problem in the Premier League is the match isn't over 90 minutes at the moment, and that is what's costing us, and that's what's costing me personally. I think we've got to talk about the elephant in the room, haven't we? The unders, really. This is the big talk.
I think so.
I think that people. Yeah. I've been quite vocal, and I've always been about this, and I think it's about fair that we actually speak about that before anything else.
Yeah, I'd agree there. I've got a few comments I'm going to add about other leagues, but Premier League in particular. Look, the unders just haven't really come yet this season. The goals are much higher. I know you got some stats about the amount of goals scored after the 80th minute, after the 90th minute. There is more added on time in the Premier League than any other league now because of VAR, other things.
I think the first thing you got to remember about Steve is let's get this straight. The reason why I do what I do is because many years ago, 30 years ago, when I was an odds compiler, all the Shrewdies would bet unders. No clever better would bet overs. It was always something that the Shrewdies would bet unders. So I was brought up in a mentality of unders. Now, I don't bet unders all the time. But every week we look at the Premier League here on Because We Win, and we have to find 3 bets to give everybody. That is the brief. Everyone has to find 3 bets. Now, the Premier League right now is very hard to find value. You've got so many heavy favourites against so many weak teams. If you want to go for the Asian handicap, you've got to look at the mentality of the player, of the team, if they want to kick on or they want to ease up. The winter nil market was always a bet that I liked, and that market has been taken away from Bet Rivers. You can parlay up a same game parlay, but it's, that I find that quite difficult to do in terms of, I don't like putting up bets that are one team to win in under 4.5 goals and one team to win in under 3.5 goals. That's because I'm old school. That's me. Other handicappers do that. I don't do that. So that's one of the reasons why. So it's really, really hard to find value, unless you want to put on a parlay of teams at minus 400, minus 300, minus 400. The Premier League is hard at the moment because the top and the bottom are so vastly. So the total goals markets is the markets that I always look at. And I would always go towards the unders because that is the way I've been brought up. And I know we haven't won. We could cash one this at the moment. We're probably about, if it gets to halftime, we're about level on the market. But going into this match, we're 0 from 2 from the 2 matches. And I said on this week, I thought it was an unders card. Now, I've done this betting properly, seriously betting. I mean, not like huge volumes, but I've been a sort of a vocal kind of pundit. I've been a handicapper for about 20 odd years. This time of this season, November, December, anyone in the UK will know that today is a very, very, very cold day. It's 0 degrees. This time around, every year, this time matches would end at in 0-0s, 1-0s, 1-1. It's happened for 20 years since I've been betting. This season is unlike anybody else. We're seeing things happening this time around, which I've never seen before. We've seen things happen my biggest ever losing season was in the COVID season. I think I was about 100 units down at one stage and I recovered and got it back to making about 5, which I still believe was one of the biggest turnarounds I've ever done. The biggest turnaround I've ever done in betting. And that was because there was no crowds and it was very hard for handicappers to sort of function in the crowds. These extra minutes are making it really, really, really hard for any spreadsheet, anything to really understand the goal markets. We saw in the World Cup lots of goals late on, lots of overs cashing in. We saw it all come back to the norm as the tournament went on. The Premier League is not stopping. It's absolutely insane, the amount of late goals, the amount of injury time. Not only in the second half, the first half as well. I mean, we've seen goals in 45 minutes plus 6, 45 minutes plus 7, 45 minutes plus 8. You've never seen that kind of added on. So if you're looking at 8 minutes in the first half and 10 minutes, you're getting extra 18 minutes or 16 minutes in an average Premier League game. Now, that is where I'm coming unstuck. That's where my strategy is really being found out here. Now, if we look at the Premier League this is the last 3 weeks alone. First 1 minute to 20 minutes, 13 goals scored in the Premier League. 20 minutes to halftime, 22. So that is the norm. 45 goals in 3 matches, in 3 weeks of matches is probably the norm, the goals you would expect in the first half of a football match. That's probably about norm. And I would expect that to probably go down. It's the second half where things are changing. Half time to 60 minutes, 10 minutes. 60 minutes to full time, 43 goals are scored in the last 3 weeks. And 18 of those goals have been scored in 90 minutes and including extra time. That is where this problem lies. And this is where, so what do we do? Do we change the way that you approach betting? Do we look for angles? I think the looking at the stats and looking at the where it is, I think we're getting it right up to 60 minutes in football matches. I mean, yesterday, Luton game. Luton.
I thought you were really unlucky there. It looked an under all day.
Wolves, that's 0-0 at 70 minutes. Now, you're looking at a match there where you should be minus 1,000 to be cashing over under 2.5 goals. You get 3 goals in 20 minutes in 30 minutes because you got that 10 minutes extra time. In the Sheffield United Wolves game 3 weeks ago, we saw goals going in. You saw players bombing into the box where things that the referee would just wipe out are now being called for VAR decisions, and the referee goes over, looks at it, and gives a penalty or a free kick. That would never happen. But everything is destroying us in the last quarter of the football match, or the last quarter. That's where all the goals are coming in. West Ham yesterday against Burnley, I didn't give the pick up, but when I saw the West Ham side, they didn't have a striker. I bet under 2.5 goals in that game. That was 0-0 going into 70 minutes. 3 goals. These kind of things are just happening all the time. Now, is it wrong for me to bet under 2.5 goals? Is it wrong? Because I think that anyone who's betting over 2.5 is getting lucky. They're having a really hard. They're not thinking they're cashing in these matches going into the hour mark. They're thinking to themselves, I've done my money. But I think the strategy now, for me, the way these late goals are going on, I think the first thing we should, I've never been one to hedge, but I think, and I probably won't hedge, because to me, it doesn't bother me. If we have a bad run, it wouldn't really affect me, but I still just continue what I'm doing. I would go on again. I'll keep doing it until the run sort of event. But if you're worrying about the position, now my advice would be, if it's 0-0 and you get to about 60 minutes, hedge your position and get out. The other thing where I think my strategy might be for this week on the Premier League show, or for my week going forward in the Premier League, is to concentrate on that first half, because the first half goals are lower or on the norm of what we've seen in season on season pass. So the under 1.5 goals in the first half, or under 1 goal in the first half, is probably cashing. But the game is ending 3-2 or ending 2-1. Like, how many matches that we've seen that we've bet recent weeks have been 0-0 at half time and we've lost on the under 2.5 goals? So it's not the first half, it's not the play, it's not the conditions, it's not the reasoning behind the play. The play, yeah, it's great. The two teams very nervy. First half, great nervy. But the second half, everything is going out the window for varying different reasons, for the VAR, for the added minutes, and for the fact that teams now aren't settling for points. They want to go and win. 10 years ago in the Premier League, 2 teams, third and fourth and bottom of the Premier League, would just settle for a 0-0 draw or 1-1 draw and take the point. Nowadays, that isn't happening. They're going all out for the win. And Luton against Crystal Palace, perfect example. Those teams would have been 1-1. That would have ended 1-1. But Luton went for it. They know they've got to pick up points. There's a different mentality in the way the teams approach, but the logic and the weather conditions, which I people laugh at me about the weather conditions, but I tell you what, you go and play football today in the UK and go and play football in August, and which one's going to produce more goals in the conditions? The first real cold snap, the goals usually go under, and that is what's happening to us here. So I think the approach now is to steal. I'm not going to change what I've done. You're never going to see me next week go, I'll tell you what, I've got that wrong. I'm going to go over 3.5, over 3.5, over 3.5 to chase my money. That ain't me. You can do it. If you want to do it, you can do it. But that's not me. But what I will do is I'll use the same methodology for my approach, but maybe bring it into the first half, because the second half, things are going absolutely crazy in the Premier League. And I'm only talking Premier League. It's different around the world, but in the Premier League, it's goal crazy in the Premier League. And I said to you just there. I'm talking a lot here, Steve, because I'm going to really let you get.
Well, it's a big section. It's important we address it.
Yeah, but the other thing is I don't feel comfortable now betting an under 2. I used to bet under 2.5 goals, and there'd be 1 goal, and it would be 70 minutes, and I'd take the dog for a walk, pop in the pub, come back, and cash the ticket. I don't feel comfortable at 0-0. At 1-0 with 70 minutes, I don't feel comfortable at all. Even I bet under 3.5 today in the Aston Villa game, and not one.
I was on over 3, and I've no idea I didn't cash.
There you go. But not one stage of that match did I feel confident, and not one stage, even with the injury time. And like, I'm on the 2.5 goals now, but it's changing the way. But I don't think there's a logic to say, because I feel that now, if everyone just change it, we're going to go over. Oh, we're going to go over. You're playing at an artificial wrong price. The time to get with these overs was in week 1, week 2, week 3 of the Premier League, when no one had really factored into how important these games were. And there would probably be a lot of cleverer people than me that did that. I didn't. And that was the time to get with it. The time now to change your strategy and go across, you might as well just not bet. There's no point in change. I've always said, if you're betting 3.5 goals in the Premier League at around about even money in matches, I don't care what's going on at the moment, but you might get lucky in some of the matches, but I think you'll lose long-term doing that. And this is a long-term fix, but I do still feel that the unders will come good. I don't think it's a question of over or under. I think things always level it out. But if you look at the actual statistics and you look at the goal ratios, all the damage is being done in the last 20 minutes. We have been on bets that just in play, we would be huge favourite. We're not betting on things that I think there was one game last week where we bet Crystal Palace against Everton, which was 2-0 after 15 minutes. Apart from that game, everyone we've looked like cashing. Every single bet we look like cashing. And then it's gone crazy in the last 25 minutes. And that is the logic. So I think what we have to do now is keep that. I still believe keep that logic because I still believe that the cold makes it and it's going to get colder.
Well, yeah, totally agree. Did you see? You may well have seen on the Action Show with RJ. I think the last time we did it, he actually gave a scientific explanation about the human body, things like that, and why the human body cannot perform as well under cold conditions. And I was watching.
He's a
I was
much
actually on a
highly tuned athlete than I am. I mean, he would know a lot more.
But I follow RJ on Instagram and I see him in the gym all the time, so he knows his stuff on that. But I got caught out by that today. I was on an over in Germany, mostly based on stats, but I did know the weather forecast was going to be cold. The pitch in that particular league at Heidenheim isn't as good as it was in August. I guess in the Premier League, the difference is all the pitches are really good now and the stadiums are big and perhaps you don't have as much of a weather impact in terms of that side of things. But it is no doubt about it, these cold conditions will start to generate.
I can only tell you, I can only talk from experience. I mean, you know much more about football, you know much more about players, you know much more about teams than I'll ever even admit to know, Steve. RJ, and I just know sort of history and betting. That's my background. I know the player. I know the idea of how they'll set out. I know a little bit about the way. But you guys will know a lot more about football than me. Betting experience, I think I've got the edge. But what I will tell you one thing about it is that I used to work in an office. I worked in southern Italy, and I worked with these two guys who were some of the basically worked for the mafia in the World Cup in America. And I sat in a room trading with these two fellas who were betting in millions of pounds. And they didn't speak any English, but they used to ask me to do lines. I used to get them into contact with people in Asia to get their money on, and I used to work with them. And the one thing they always used to think was the defining thing was the weather. And at the time, I was about 24, 25. I was about 24. I used to think, why are they interested in the weather? The weather was the key element. We all talk about weather in American football. We talk about weather in rugby. You know, as soon as it rains or the rugby points go down, you know, and the same thing in American football, snow. We never used it really a lot in football. And these guys used to think the weather is important. It always stuck with me. So you'll see me always, because everything in what I do, I refer back to somebody. I think I remember that guy saying that to me. I remember that guy because my brain is just mixed up with 50, 60 really highly intelligent people I've met along the way. And I've always put a little part of what they've told me into my brain that I'd be able to, none of the logic has actually come from me. It's just people I've met along the way. But that was a really important thing. And then I've put it into practice over years and years and years and years. And it seemed to have worked. This has worked. That weather play worked. Oh, that was an important factor. That was a good factor. But for this season and the COVID season, they were the two seasons that nothing that happened then worked.
Are we going to see goal lines now go up? Because there's so many more goals.
I think you have to.
This happened in France last year. The first half of the season, tons of goals were scored, so the goal lines went up. And they've stayed up. And they haven't adapted yet this season in France, for example. They've stayed pretty high. The value's been on the unders. Even I've been cashing on the unders in France, which is unusual for me. And I guess with Premier League, maybe it's going to go the opposite way. The goal lines will go up, and then is it time to strike on unders?
Well, I think now when you've got a Liverpool game, when you've got an Aston Villa game, when you've got a Tottenham game, you know that match is a 3.5 goal game. Man City, 3.5 games. So there's 4 teams in the Premier League, and now they are standard 3.5 matches. You never had that. You never had that. Will you see Crystal Palace matches going 3.5? Would you see Burnley matches going 3.5? I don't know. But I do think that the line on the Asian handicap between 2.5 to 3 will become the norm. It will probably become a 2.75 league as we go on, especially if we're seeing the trend we are now. So that 2.5, 3 will be around about -110 either way. And that will be everyone used to look at the 2.5 as the standard line. And, if you fancy goals over 2.5 would be minus 130 or minus 136, something like that. I think now those days, the under days on the 2.5 line will be plus money pretty much now regularly on the Premier League weekend, unless things completely change. And I don't know what to do. I mean, in COVID, I was quite flummoxed. I didn't really know how to adjust there. But it sort of, I realised the home advantage was nowhere near important, and I sort of just steadily played the game. I just steadily sort of chipped away on things and managed to get out of trouble. This time around, I'm not sure whether, but I think the approach is to keep with that, because all these odds are done by a computer, and all these odds are done by an algorithm and a program. So if you're a 2.75 game, the total goals in the first half will obviously go up. The over and under will go up because the computer will work out how many goals there are. And I think that's where the problems that's where the value will lie. I think the value lies here now on these Premier League games, definitely in the first half. I think if we, instead of looking at the totals, maybe just concentrate on the first half, because there's a lot of teams who do or are quite tight in the first half of the Premier League through historically. Or Wolverhampton Wanderers is a perfect example of that. And then they open up in the second half, and I think that's where we sort of maybe could potentially make some money, because the goal lines could go up and we could still lose money by betting and with 2 late goals in the 92nd and the 98th minute. But in that first half, we may get away with it. And I think that would potentially be where if I'm looking next week now, I think this is a big statement for me, but I think the under 2.5 at the moment is a ride that, for me, that's sort of run its course. I don't think I can bet them, because without being able to advise people what to do during in play, I think it's very hard. Pre-match, I could probably get involved and say, yeah, do it. But if I was sitting next to you or had the conversation like this, I'll be telling people, get out of this. We're going to do our bollocks. We've got to get out of this now. But I can't do that, So I think until I see some evidence that things might be changing in these injury times, or the players might have adapted to it better, I don't think I can. But I think in the first half is definitely where I'll be going here, Steve.
Just want to say thanks for everyone who's been joining in live. Well over 30 odd viewers at the moment. Duncan, David, Andrew. Thanks for the comments as well. Not disregarding them.
You got any bad ones, Steve? You got any bad ones?
There is some, but Claudio has said.
Stick them up. I don't care if they're bad ones.
You guys have been such a disappointment this year with your pick. He said he watches the picks every week, and they should post records. We do actually post. We do post the records on
Claudio,
the screen.
Listen, you can't be watching every week if you don't think we post our records, Claudio.
They're up there.
Disappointment. I think every show's winning bar one.
Yeah. The European show, I addressed that this week. Stick with us long term. We've actually on official picks on that show, we're 3-1 this week. Well done to Rory Barlow, who's already beaten James Easton in the challenge. 2 out of 2. Plus money winners in La Liga. James could still go 2 out of 2. At the minute he's losing with Rams, but it is 2-1 to Ren in play at this point in time. I don't think I could personally suggest any in running.
The other thing with that is that the Rory just shows you that the underdogs do come in. Sean Calvert, last man standing at a Christmas party. Rory Barlow beating the mighty James Easton. Big win there. That's a massive shock. But Claudio, come on. He must be Daniele Fischer-Keller's mate, because he's got the because the Serie A show. Oh, Claudio must be.
The thing is, it is over the course of a year as well, and this is because we win team. Some handicappers will. Everyone has bad runs, but you've got to give everyone the course.
Steve, I think you're giving too much respect. Listen, there is. I think if you went through all the shows from last season, we did well. Some of them didn't perform as well as the others. The French league that you did was exceptional. The Premier League show is more or less dead flat, mainly due to me. Jack Wright has been cashing it every single week. The other thing about that is you can pick or choose. If you don't like someone, I pick, and you think you want to listen to Steve, or you want to listen to James, or you want to listen to Jack, or you listen to RJ, you don't have to listen to everybody. You got a brain. You don't have to listen to everything you're doing. And we're the most transparent channel you're ever going to see. Our records are real. Our records are right. And, and the tennis, the tennis season just finished. Sean Calvert's got 40-odd points of profit on there. So the Cricket World Cup just finished. The guys smashed it on every single match in the Cricket World Cup. I think it's a bit harsh,
Yeah.
to be fair.
Yeah, I
have a
think
go
it's
at
a bit
me.
harsh,
I've been
for
rubbish.
sure.
But have a go at me. I've got no problem with that. But the other boys, they're keeping me accustomed to the nice red wine I'm drinking at lunch this afternoon. Don't worry about that.
Everton, Man United. Let's talk
Yeah.
in running here. 1-0 to Man United at half time. If you fancy Everton to turn it round, plus 550 to win at full time. Under 2.5 goals is now minus 125. So that's a shorter price than what you advised it at pre-game, Nigel.
Well, mate, do you know
could
what?
Cash out now for a profit.
I wouldn't do that. I mean, it was a goal, an absolute worldly goal. It's the goal of the season, as everyone's.
It is the goal of the season.
Brilliant goal, obviously. But the reason I bet the under 2.5 goals here is purely and simply for a couple of factors. One of them, obviously, is the weather conditions, which we highlight all the time, and the second one is because Manchester United have this huge match away in Galatasaray in the Champions League in midweek. Now, that match is absolutely massive to Manchester United Football Club in their revenue, to Ten Hag. So I would expect Man United to shut up shop here. And I'm not just saying it because I'm under the 2.5 goals and I like the 2.5 goals, but I would actually expect them. So that was my reasoning before the game. You know, if you've bet that, I wouldn't advise anyone to get out. You know, we were talking about under 1.5 goals in the first half. They would have cashed there. But Man United have been winning pretty ugly in recent weeks. I mean,
Man United are plus 125 to keep a clean sheet.
Well, you know what? I'd go one better than that. I'd go for Aston Villa lost their first 3 matches of the season 1-0 at home. And I think Manchester United will just be delighted with a 1-0 win. I would probably, if I was having a bet now, instead of betting under 2.5 goals, because I don't want to be accused of losing too much money on under 2.5 goals market, what I would probably bet here would be the game to finish 1-0 to Manchester United. That would be my bet. I mean, Man United I don't think they'll offer anything. I think they'll be so tactical. They won 1-0 against Luton in their last match. They've got that game against Galatasaray. Winning ugly is what Man United are doing at the moment. And Everton just have got a big problem scoring goals. Man United's last 2 home wins in the Premier League, 1-0 at Fulham, 1-0 against Luton. Everton at home this season, they've been beaten 1-0 by Fulham, 1-0 by Wolves, 1-0 by Arsenal. First 3 matches of the season. I would probably just bet Man United to win this 1-0 and get the job done, get on the plane. But if we hit the 85th minute mark, cash it, get out of it. Because 43 goals in that market, and we don't want to be another one that's cost them. But I'd probably what price of Man United to 1-0? Let's have a look. You see the price there?
I think under 2 goals was plus 310. That was under 2 goals. So you've got a push if it ends.
So no more goals in the game is plus 350 with Bet Rivers. So that's what I'd do. I'd go for that. I'd just go for that and just try to hope that Man United win the 1-0 win. But
someone asked me about the Ren against Rams game if I fancy anything in running here. I've had it on and I can't. It's a tough one to call. It's 2-1-2 Ren at the moment. James Easton needs a Rans goal. If you do want the double chance on Reims, I'm not actually sure what it is, but the Asian handicap line at the minute, yes. If you wanted to do Reims draw no bet from this point in time, you're looking at about minus 140, which gives you a bit of security. But tough game, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually ended 2-1, but I'm not sure. Tough one. Sometimes if you just don't know, then don't bet it. Let's where we're going to talk to now, Nigel. Let's just go back to Premier League outrights because we like to have a bit about the outrights, and I think there's two areas I want to touch on. Relegation. Because the minus 10-point deduction on Everton has changed, obviously, the dynamics of the league table. Where is the value now in this? I mean, Luton Town won yesterday. They're still a massive, heavy favourite to go down. I mean, Burnley and Sheffield United have been awful, but, I mean, do you give Luton a chance now? A bit more?
I think these are very dangerous markets to bet on because, obviously, you obviously got these points deductions, and also Everton could appeal and get half of it reduced. They could get some of the points back. So you're not really betting on a complete level playing field. The one thing I would say to you, though, is this is, in my opinion, just a 5-runner race. I think there is only 5 teams that can get relegated. And I still include Bournemouth in that record, even though they... actually, Fulham, 6, maybe 6. I think there's 6 teams. Fulham, Bournemouth...
Plus 700 you can get on Fulham to go down.
Well, I mean, they're not scoring goals, and I know a lot of people are talking about them. Jack's very keen on them to not perform this weekend and score goals. So, I mean, Luton have got a very good manager, a very shrewd manager, and at home, so obviously people aren't going to like going there.
It's a tough place to go, isn't it?
Well, I wasn't going to say that, but their XG is pretty good. You know, their XG is pretty good. Sheffield United, you would presume are finished. The defensive frailties they're showing is incredible. Burnley are at that stage where I think they're paying too much respect to Premier League sides. I think they went off the front foot in the Championship and won the Championship, and they've come to this league and tried to not go at them and just show a little bit more respect. I think Company must be under some pressure, and I think they'll probably be
the sack race. Heckingbottom plus 100 next out. Vincent Company, I think, is plus 400. They meet each other next match. Does the loser of that get sacked?
Well, any other season, you would say yes. But this season, I mean, no one's gone yet. I mean, we're going into Christmas, which is insane. I think where people might lose their job, I don't think anyone's going to go. I think if anyone does lose their job in the Premier League, it'll be at that week, 2 weeks before Christmas, when we have that Christmas break after. I think it's into the new year, doesn't it? There's a 2-week break in the Premier League. I think that's when
they have the winter. We have a sort of mini winter break.
Yeah, I think that's where teams will decide what they got. And the thing is now, David, the Premier League, and we're going to talk about a top world-class manager. I probably think in the next segment, but where are these managers? I mean, if you're riding high at the Championship, then you're like, you've got a team in going in well in the Champions, like the manager at Southampton who's doing exceptionally well and great form. You've got, the Leicester City manager. Why would you want to leave a club like that and go to Sheffield United or Burnley? I don't think there's a dearth of top managers to come in and take the jobs. Now, the likes of Sam Allardyce and all this that used to be around for years, they're not there. Alan Kirby, Sam Allardyce, they're not there anymore. So where'd you go? You've got to find some real upside.
Probably,
and who's going to want abroad? But you're better off to look up. But when you go in the Championship, Dan Robert made this point on the Premier League show at the weekend. When you go next season in the Championship, you're probably better with what you've got to get you back up again.
Well, yeah, most definitely. I mean, I think we're probably like Burnley. I think that Burnley squad in the Championship was better than what it is now. I think they've signed players. I think they lost a couple. That Teller was a big player for them in the Championship.
Yeah, but they were the bosses, weren't they? They played with no fear. They had a bit of swagger, confidence. Once you get beat every week and you're a young side, and it's all right. It's all right. It's all right rocking up at Stoke, but you got Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal in your Premier League matches.
Why is Eddie Howe fourth favourite next manager out at plus 600? Do you think? I looked at this and I was wondering what's going on there. Is there like some inside information that suggests he's under pressure? But
I think at the end of the day, he's probably under the more pressure to deliver than anybody else I would have thought in that list. I think he's got more pressure to get to the Champions League and more pressure to deliver a trophy of some sort than probably anybody else in that league, would you say? People will say he's done a brilliant job, but with the billions and billions of Saudi money, where would me and you put?
If they get beat by PSG, they're out of the Champions League. I guess that people might be looking at that and thinking,
say he won the Europa League. If he won the Europa League and they won it, but that would be if he got to third and won the Europa League, he's a hero. Yeah. If he finishes fourth in the Champions League and finishes fifth in the Premier League, then he's not so good, is he? So I think third place is as crucial for Newcastle as fourth is an absolute disaster. And also as well, they can get all those Saudi players, can't they, on loan deals, and there'd be some real big names potentially coming to St James's Park. And is he that kind of manager that can handle Benzema and some of those big names? Despite all, you think about all the money that Newcastle spent and all the players they've spent, they haven't really spent it on just like Isaac is a brilliant centre forward. I mean, I think he's a quality player, but he's not like a massive name who's going to come in and disrupt the dressing room. And he could potentially have 5 or 6 players who can come in and disrupt the dressing room, and then you'll see whether he's the right fit to handle that. Because eventually Newcastle are going to, that Saudi money will come through eventually, whether it's this year, whether it's next year, or it's the year after, and they will be challenging for Premier League titles, and they will be challenging for Champions League if the Saudis want that money. You remember Saudis are going to have the World Cup as well, so they're going to invest and want to win something. And will they look at Eddie Howe as the man who can have that dressing room? I don't think I don't think he'll go this season. I don't think he'll be a better going for. But I'd be absolutely staggered if Eddie Howe was the Newcastle manager in 18 months from now.
I kind of agree with you. I think at
He'll
some
be next
point,
England manager, won't he? I think
there'll be a feeling that perhaps the Newcastle project's almost too big for Eddie Howe, and they'll want a name they might be looking at potentially is the Leverkusen manager, Xabi Alonso. And I get a lot of questions every week, Nigel, as you might imagine, and I'm getting a lot of people asking me about Leverkusen.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, did anyone see him? Where did he come from? Did anyone expect him to be such a great manager as what he was?
I don't actually know what his full history is, but I guess it's a bit like Lampard and Gerrard. Kind of, he just come in and did his coaching badges, and he's immediately got a big club. He hasn't really served his apprenticeship at a lower league club anywhere. I don't believe anyway. And last year, I'll say one thing: they were very inconsistent, but they've really turned things around. And at the minute, they're plus 300 to win the Bundesliga. They've won every game bar one in the Bundesliga. And the only draw they had was away against Bayern. So we might actually get a title race this year. Everyone was talking about, Dortmund, no, they'll bottle it. Leipzig, something will go wrong. We've actually got a new name in the mixer for once. And I have to say, they are playing unbelievably good football. And I know you might not watch a lot of Bundesliga, and it does have a reputation of being a soft league. But they've got a really good squad. This manager is so technically good that I can see why he's the red hot favourite to be the next Real Madrid manager. He's got strong links to that club. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ancelotti departs in the summer and they bring in Xabi Alonso. They're plus 900 to win the Europa League, Nigel. I just want your thoughts on now, because people are starting to bet. For me, it's not a great time to bet on Europa League because we don't know what teams are going to drop down into it. Yeah. But plus 900... is that a strategy you'll be looking at now, or are you a case where we need to know who's going to be in the competition?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of things that go with the Europa League, and whether or not this is a strategy that you want to have, and whether it's one that's stood the test of time over the years, you'll probably be able to tell me a lot better than I do. But I think to win the Europa League, you want a team really that isn't fighting for the title in their domestic country. I don't think if Liverpool are right in a battle with Manchester City to win the Premier League title, which I expect them to do, I think the Premier League title is very, very wide open. I do. I really do. And my feelings of Liverpool. Will they really want to be involved in the Europa League? That would be my problem. And I think they'll put the kids in the Europa League all the way till they get to the knockout stage and treat it a little bit like the League Cup over here. Because it's an incentive for teams that want a Champions League place, but Liverpool will be in the Champions League.
Plus 250 Liverpool. We bet Rivers win the Europa League.
I wouldn't bet that with anyone's money. That's one team I would not touch at all, because I think they've got a realistic chance of winning the Premier League, and I think then they're going to make the Champions League. I think you want to be with teams that aren't performing in their league, who look at this as a chance to make the Champions League, and that is where I think Leverkusen may be a problem. I mean, if Leverkusen, as we stand now, Leverkusen at 9-1 or plus 900 is on current form, they should be vying for favouritism with Liverpool, not far off favouritism with Liverpool. But if they're toe-to-toe with Bayern Munich with 8 games to go or 10 games to go this season, have they got the squad to do it? Have they got the squad to do it? And also, say there's a disaster at a club and they come in for Alonso now and he goes, then you could be looking at a sinking ship. So I wouldn't be rushing. No, I think you got all these future markets. I think you've got to put your mind 3 months ahead. You people get a little bit carried away from what we're seeing now and not thinking about 3 months in advance. And I think 3 months in advance, I think things might be a little bit cloudy. We're going to see a lot about Alonso and this chance. They've got Borussia Dortmund next game, haven't they? Away from home, that'll be a big game for them. So we'll see a little bit more about them then. But the more his stock rises, the more people will be, obviously Real Madrid, as we know, other teams may look at him as well, other teams potentially around Europe. And I think that comes with an added pressure on it. And it's still a small squad. They're very reliant on the
Victor Boniface up front. You're right. I was going to mention it. I mean, he's one of Nigeria have got unbelievable strikers at the moment, by the way, Nigel. They've got about 7 or 8, but they're still doing terrible in African qualifying. But Victor Boniface is a lethal weapon. I could see him coming into the Premier League, maybe even in the summer. And you're right, it's a big problem if he went down. I'm like, we haven't got anyone as good as him to replace him. So the squad is smaller, but
you've also got to think about, obviously, you've got to think about teams that are coming in as well. I mean, we're at a sort of crucial stage of the Champions League now. You know, you've got big teams coming in as well. But I look at the fit for a Champions League side with me would be a team that a Europa League side for me would be a team that are in a battle for 4th, 5th in their domestic league, and really need the opportunity to win that tournament and get in. If someone's already in or chasing for their title, I'm not convinced whether I want to be betting them, and I think Bayer Leverkusen will be betting. It's going to be a penalty here. It looks like it's going to be a penalty.
Looks like a penalty. It does look like Ashley Young's fouled Rashford. They might as well just give it now. Don't even bother him looking at the screen. It's pretty obvious, this one, I think, but you never know. It looks like you're going to be cheering on Jordan Pickford here.
Well, that's one thing I want to do. And to be fair, Steve, we're up to 41 minutes. And for me to go down on another losing tip is a good time to end the show, I think.
Yeah. Well, what else was I going to mention before we go?
No, don't worry about it. If the penalty goes in, we're just going. He has a little dive. The referee actually booked the player for a dive.
I think from where you look at the referee's angle, the referee, I can see why he's done that, because he was hidden for the actual contact. So I don't blame the referee. This is actually probably what VAR's for.
But this is what I'm saying. When VAR wasn't in, it would be 1-0.
I know.
The game.
But VAR does chalk off a lot of goals as well.
No yellow card, now penalty.
Come on, this is just taking forever, though, isn't it? I mean, I'm not being funny. This one is an obvious one. They could,
I know, but this is another sort of the VAR decisions, things, the way the game's changed here. I mean, that would have been 1-0, gone down the other one, got away with it, and then we would have moved on. So, I suppose, like all things, we've got to move on. And unfortunately for me, I think I've got to really move on and try to adapt. But we'll have to see.
Yeah. As well, I want to mention one thing before we go about Liga, and that is another question I get asked a lot is whether Lyon could get relegated from France Liga. They are rock bottom. They got their first win just before the international break. They got a massive game later against Lille. They're plus 210 to go down directly. If you're betting on League One relegation, make sure you read the T&Cs, because there's the playoff involved. Most of the markets are just for direct relegation. Do I think they could go down? No, I don't think they will go down. But at this point in time, they are, they're quite cut off a little bit. I mean, they're 5 points off the nearest safe position, direct safe position. So I think it's one of those where we've got to monitor the situation. Let's see how they get on tonight. But I do get a lot do ask me, could the unthinkable happen and Lyon, the mighty Lyon, actually go down League 2, which would be rather sensational. Plus 210 with Bet Rivers to go down. I don't know. This penalty's about to be taken now.
Fernandes give it for Rashford, and I want Rashford to miss his penalty, not only because I'm on the under 2.5 goals, but the way he dyed his hair. I fancy a miss here. What a good penalty that was. That was a good penalty.
Well, no one's saving that.
That was a good penalty, that top corner. Jesus. That haircut. I mean, I might have to get my hair done like that for the next.
What is that hair?
It's called hair.
What colour are you calling that?
Oh, it's don't know what it is.
Like
battery Duracell ginger.
Duracell. Absolutely.
Duracell. I don't know. Anyway,
you might still cash.
Well, not on me 1-0 that I said here, but anyway, another VAR penalty. There'll be a 98th minute goal that cashes me. But you might see Man United making changes now. You might see Man United making a lot of changes.
One final thought before we go. I just want to. There was some sad news today. Terry Venables died, former England manager, well known for the England run during Euro '96. I remember as a kid. How old was I then? Bloody hell, 9, 10. You would have been what?
You were 9, 10 in 1996.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I don't know.
You had a tough paper round, Wishley. You've had a tough paper round, boy. You've had a tough paper
I used to actually have a paper round around here. Yeah,
I've done 3 paper rounds. I've done 3 paper rounds a day. I did 23. I was 23.
You said off air before we came, you actually met Terry Venables once.
I did. I met him in a nightclub. I went to a nightclub. And I was invited, but it was a press. I was working for a newspaper, and I went to a nightclub, and I can't even remember where the nightclub was. It was in London somewhere, and Terry Venables was there, and he sung a song, and I was a bit. Obviously, I knew he was like I was a massive, as any 23-year-old kid in the 1996 Euros. I was like big England fan, and at the time at 23, I was the king of the world. Oasis were in the charts, Blur and England were doing well in the football. It was just a glorious time to be alive. I was a QPR fan. We were the top London club then as well. And Terry Venables changed the way that English football played. And in '96, I was very, very lucky. I went to the majority of England games. I went to the game against Spain where we
England
won
on penalties.
Yeah, I went to the game against Holland where we won 4-0 or 4-1, and there was a brilliant performance with Shearer and Sheringham. And I went to the opening game against Switzerland. I didn't go to the Scotland game, but I had a ticket to go to watch England v Germany in the semi-finals. And but it was the first time I went with my girlfriend at the time to America. We went to Orlando and I went there and I missed the Euro semi-final. I had a ticket, but I was very, very lucky to be able to go. I was working at the Racing Post newspaper, and Terry Venables was just brilliant. And I've met a lot of. I'm very fortunate again in my life to have met a lot of the players that played with Terry Venables, and every single one of them held him in such high regard. And he was the way he changed it. That we should have won that. He played a 4-4.
It was a great. So that was a brilliant England team.
Big McManaman
he
on
was
the
a big
wing.
part of it.
Aaron Anderson, who I've met many times on the wing. Shearer and Sheringham, Paul Ince in midfield. I mean, that was a real proper England team.
Gazza's goal against Scotland, is that one of the best England goals you've ever seen?
I think the best England goal I wasn't at that game, but I think to me the best England goal ever, like as someone who followed England all the time, was Michael Owens against Argentina.
98 in France.
That was the best.
Yeah, that was a goal.
That was because I was really betting at that stage, and I was in a bar, like surprise, and I was in this bar, and it just erupted. It was just incredible. I think that goal will sit with me as like the most amazing. I still think that still gives me like incredible. I remember Sol Campbell scoring at the end, thinking we've won it, and then them going down the other end and almost scoring. That was an amazing goal. But I mean, there was an incredible tournament. Terry Venables changed the way English football was. Grant Taylor was before; it was really dour. We didn't really do anything. Venables come in. Everything in '96 was great. Everyone was doing okay. Tony Blair come into government. Oasis and Blur. London was buzzing. England was buzzing. Everything was superb. Everyone was flying high. People were making lots of money in the city of London, and the England football team was doing well. And with this charismatic manager at the head of it, and it was great. And it was very sad to see him in pass away today. But he hasn't been very well. And one of my aunties, this is true story. My auntie Diane, who married my uncle Mick, went out with Terry Venables when she was a young girl. What could have been?
There you go. Yeah, rest in peace, Terry. Sadly missed. Any closing thoughts before we finish, Nigel? Remember the goals go down December, right?
No closing thoughts. Listen, it's up to you. As it was Theo who made the comment there, we're not doing very well this season. Well, listen, we're providing content. We're doing our best. You got to remember that I'm betting these things as well. You know, I'm not sitting here just doing these things. I bet everything I say to you, and I'm feeling it as much as you. But I will work on it. We'll change it around, and we will get 0-0 soon. I don't know when, but we will get 0-0 soon. Seems like ages we got 0-0. The 0-0 detector's an antique now.
Well, thanks very much, everyone, for joining live. Check out, there's going to be loads of shows this week. We've got Champions League, we've got Europa League, and then, of course, Premier League and European preview show later on in the week as well. Do follow us on the socials, the Instagram account as well. Always ask after new followers on there. There was some exclusive Christmas party posts and videos on the Instagram account on Friday night. So don't miss out. And we will see you around next time, everyone. Good bye, take care, and good luck whatever you're betting for the rest of today.